The following program has been pre-recorded, so please don't call in at this time. If you wish to participate in the program, tune in at 5 p.m. every Wednesday for A Pause for Thought on Baton Rouge Community Radio.
My Sunday feelings coming up over me.
Good evening, fellow humans. This is Wayne Parker with A Pause for Thought on Baton Rouge Community Radio, 96.9 FM in Baton Rouge. Well, good evening, everyone. Yes, this is a call-in show, which I didn't mention, so saying yes, this is kind of absurd, but I'm reading from my script tonight since I often forget a lot of what I wanted to say during this time. Anyway, you can call in, and you are encouraged to do so. 343-9927, 343-9927. If you're outside the listing area, or outside the area code area, and maybe live streaming on whyr.org, just call the area code 225, then 343-9927. The only rule for people outside of this studio participating is that they do so respectfully and voice their opinions and thoughts as such. We don't need any rants. This is not talk radio per se, if you know what I mean. Okay, tonight we have a guest, very interesting individual. I think you'll agree. David W. Earle is a professional licensed counselor, and we'll talk about what that is in a moment. And he's also a local author, a prolific author, actually. And I've read through a couple of his books in getting ready for the show, and it's very good reading and very informative. And we'll get to him in a moment. But good evening, David. Thanks for coming.
Thank you. That introduction was wonderful. Mother would be proud.
Well, that's nice, since my mother may be listening.
My mother.
Oh, your mother. Oh, yeah, but I don't care about. Anyway, Johnny Parker is here also. Johnny, how you doing?
I'm doing great.
Good.
Great
man,
to
good.
be here, Wayne.
Yeah, it's great to have you here, as always, both of you, actually. Okay, David, you're a professional licensed counselor. What is that, and what do you do?
Well, a licensed professional counselor is an LPC.
Oh,
and
LPC. Okay.
LPC, yes. I have clients that come to me for various problems. I like to work with anger management, anxiety, relationship, and addiction. I do a lot of work in addiction.
So you're similar to a social worker then, or something like that, or?
Oh yes, it's similar to.
Okay. Is it all just one-on-one, handling?
Yeah. Mine is just one-on-one, but counselors can do groups and stuff, but I don't do any groups.
Okay. Well, we were talking before the show, or you were talking to our engineer, Bruce. I'm not sure if I should say his last name on the air because I don't have his permission, but you were talking about how you had some, did some consulting and all that too.
Yes, I work with the business and industry. A lot of the plants and companies have needs for someone who can help people communicate better and work with teams, and so I'm often hired to come out as a business coach.
Oh.
And basically I mostly work one-on-one with executives.
Wow, so important people hire you, huh?
Yeah, and smart ones.
Only the smart ones,
Only the smart
yes.
ones.
Well, mostly. Some people get lucky, I guess, right? Some dumb people get lucky and just get you by chance, right?
Is that where dumb luck comes from?
Possibly. Okay, well, as I mentioned to everyone, David is a prolific writer, and I looked through your book, David, titled Love is Not Enough. And what I got from it was that it lays out how most, if not all, families are dysfunctional, some more than others, of course, and that during their development, children adopt the dysfunctional behaviors of their parents and then carry them into adulthood and then pass them on in their lives. Can you give some examples of that?
Well, all of us was raised in chaos. Some a little chaos and some a lot. That becomes our habit, a chaos habit.
Is this chaos as in the house is constantly catching fire, or?
No, it's how we behave, or how we manage anger, how do we communicate. Do we play games? Are we honest? Or do we give people the silent
Playing
treatment?
games, are we manipulative?
Manipulative,
or
right.
we adopt roles, I guess, in response to certain behaviors and whatnot?
True.
Okay.
Yeah. So anyway, when we go out and look for somebody in life to have a partner with, we tend to find somebody with the same degree of chaos because that's what's normal for us. So, and the book was written basically from my first marriage. And she was a dear person, and I was a dear person, and she had her level of chaos that fit mine real well. And for 20 years, we shared our chaos. And the title comes, Love Is Not Enough, is I knew she loved me, she knew I loved her, but with our chaos, it sucked the love out of our relationship. And so...
Can you give examples without getting personal? I don't want you to share any secrets or anything, but you say that your chaos sucked the love out of the relationship.
Yeah, like I would... I'm going to talk about me because that'll be easy.
Yes.
I had a real bad anger problem. Okay, had a consistent level of irritation, and it didn't take much to have it pop out into a full-blown being emotionally drunk. That's a word I coined. I love it.
Nice.
Emotionally drunk.
Kind of like my intellectual flopping around. Huh?
Intellectually
Okay.
flopping around. I heard you say that before.
Anyway, so in emotionally drunk, so you okay, that was one of your chaos things, was you would get extremely angry at certain stuff and all that.
Right, right. And to give you an example of how when the marriage ended, I went out, started trying to learn how to love, and used this same wonderful lady that I was married to. We were talking sometime, and she threw out something like we used to fight over, and I looked at her and said, "You know, I'm not going to react to that." And she says, "Oh, that's that psychological BS you've been doing." That was an opportunity. She threw out a nice bait, if you would,
Yes.
for me to bite and go into my anger, rage, and we'd be back to the chaos habit.
And as though those are also roles that people assume in
Sure.
a relationship. Okay.
So instead of that, I looked at her and said, "You know, we fought for 20 years, and I don't want to do that anymore." You know what she said?
I don't either.
"Yeah, I don't either."
Cool. And that's often all it takes, I guess, is to step in. But you've got to be aware of those things first.
Awareness, you're right.
And you know, of course, your book brought out a lot of things that I saw as true too. I mean, and most of the things that I have learned in my life and try to share with people are things I learned the hard way by doing them myself.
Yes.
You know?
I'm trying to get my emotional age up to where I can learn from your mistakes, Wayne. When I watch you and make a mistake, maybe I can learn from it. I haven't got there yet, but I'm working on
Well, I'll do my best.
it. To give me examples?
Yes, indeed. Even without trying. I mean, it's easy. All you got to do is do anything new, and you're gonna make mistakes, right?
Right.
So whatever. Speaking of emotional maturity, I picked up on that looking through the book again before going on the air. You mentioned, well, I'll grab it right now from the book. I even put Yowie on the page marker here. You write here that mature adults gravitate toward new values and understandings. And you're talking about emotional maturity here. They gravitate toward new values and understandings, not just rehashing and blind acceptance of past patterns and previous learning. This is an ongoing process, and maturity demands lifelong learners. I think all three of us sitting here, and probably most of our listeners, would agree with that. I mean, that resonates there. But I'm curious. Well, do you want to comment on that?
Yeah, because change is hard. And that's what we're talking about. Maturity, emotional maturity, is hard. It's nothing easy about it. And, recognizing that, and then giving yourself permission to have difficulty, and I guess give you permission to make a mistake.
Yes.
Right.
Well, yeah, and like I try to urge young people whenever I get the chance. It's the grandfather in me, I guess. You show me a man who never makes a mistake, and I'll show you a man who does nothing at all. And of course, the corollary to that, I guess that's the word. The bigger the things you try, the bigger the mistakes are going to be that you make, and that's a good thing, as long as you don't let the mistakes get you down.
Yeah, I must have done a whole lot in my life of all the mistakes I made.
Well, yeah, and they go into what they go into making us what we are today, as long as we're honest about them and don't try to deny them.
Right.
And that's what I was going to get at. Have you ever seen any statistics on the general perception of,
I'm sorry.
or the percentage of emotional adults?
No.
Okay, because I recall reading, I'm sure you're familiar with M. Scott Peck.
Yes.
I read in his Road Less Traveled. I think he said that the majority, he just said the majority of adult humans never mature past the level of their early 20s. And that's been one of my frustrations throughout my life. Is I've always been childlike in that I just learn stuff, and I think things are fascinating, and I've always been honest with myself. Of course, I didn't really learn that and resolve myself to do that till I was 16 years old. But nevertheless, it just seems like people, they'll angrily disagree with me or call me all kinds of names, and then have nothing but the standard stock baloney that everybody has been raised with or whatever to counter it.
Yeah.
And that's what I kind of saw that Scott Peck meant, is that people just don't.
Well, I think maturity is to value somebody's opinion that's different than yours. Okay, you look at our Congress, and they fight all the time. They don't value each other.
No, you're right.
And so, I happen to have a more progressive point of view, but if I don't, if we did everything my way, this would be a bad situation.
It'd be boring, if anything. Yeah, it
boring.
might be good for us, but it'd be boring, right?
I need to have counterbalance.
Yes.
Because not all my ideas are good, and I know that.
Yeah, and that's how I really define a really good, true friend of mine, is someone who will feel free to tell me when I'm full of baloney. If I'm engaging in behavior that my ego blinds me to, I count on my friends to point that out. And there are a lot of people who don't like that, of course.
Yes. I love that honesty.
Yes. Well, Thoreau is big on that,
Mm-hmm.
Rather than love, money, or fame, give me honesty.
Give me honesty. Right.
And he's also one of my favorite thinkers. You mentioned earlier about chaos. And that people grow up in chaos, and that's how they view a family's life or family life.
Right.
That had happened to me. I didn't, until I got out in the world and began meeting other people's kids as a middle-aged man, I didn't realize there were other concepts of family. And it was like, wow, that's pretty cool. In some cases, in others, I'm glad I wasn't that kid, But on your book, and then, well, Johnny, did you have anything to say on this particular book? Because I wanted to talk about one more thing myself, but, this is wide open. By the way, before we get, I'm going to cut you off just as I ask you a question, Johnny, but I want to remind the listeners you can call in at 343-9927, 343-9927. You're listening to A Pause for Thought with David Earle, professional licensed counselor and local prolific author.
Yeah, the phone's been ringing off the wall, hasn't it?
Well, people just like to listen, is
Okay.
my theory. They don't want to interrupt the wonderful dialogue that we always have on here. We're never boring, right? Hey, geez, I'm starting to sound like a certain politician. Shame on me, huh? Okay, but let's see. On page 23 in your book, Love is Not Enough, you have a diagram with double arrows that you call continuums. Is that the plural of continuum?
I guess so.
I'm so terribly English language challenged. But each double arrow has one extreme of a behavior on each end. For instance, you have caring for others on one end of an arrow and selfishness on the other, blaming others on one end and excessive guilt on the other. And all of these double arrows intersect, and you drew a sort of a circle around them, but you point out in the book, in this chapter, that the intersections are all off center.
Yeah.
Would you talk about that a
Sure.
little bit?
If you take those, give me one of those again because I don't remember.
Well, here, look at it.
I'll look at it. All right. Caring for others, you mentioned, and selfishness.
Mm-hmm.
Some people gravitate towards selfishness, and some people are overly involved in other people. Both of those demonstrate a chaos behavior.
I think a lot of people would call that needy, or they
Well,
have.
that's a chaos behavior.
Okay.
Life is emotionally mature life. It's meant to be lived in the middle between two extremes. Like another one, here's a workaholic, and the other one, the opposite, is professional apathy.
Yeah.
You got people that work all the time, and that's who they are. How can they live without work? And the other person is a bum, doesn't work.
Yeah.
Well, both of those are chaos behaviors. What we need is balance. And this little demonstration shows that in between these is the healthy place to live. And it's not my diagram, but the circle is skewed, not quite in the middle, because we're never in balance. We're always trying to compensate between two extremes.
It's very much like a small example of the yin and the yang, or the Tao, or whatever. Everything's in constant flux, and the closer you can keep your fluctuations to the center, the happier you're going to be, or the more contented you're going to be.
I think that's a very true description.
And one of the neat things I think you pointed out, and I just skip right past my question for you, Johnny, but my invitation for you to join us. That's why I'm sitting there frowning. But then I'll shut up in a moment. But you mentioned with this diagram of the the different behaviors, the extremes, that oftentimes our strengths could be hurting us, and our weaknesses could actually be of benefit to us.
Well, often a person's strength, when overused, becomes a weakness. Let's say I care for people,
Mm-hmm.
but in this caring, I overcare for someone. I focus so much on them, and I forget myself, which a lot of us do. So this strength of caring for other people has been overused, and now it's a weakness that's hurting myself and my happiness.
It would also hurt the person you're helping too much, too, wouldn't it?
Yes, it could.
I mean, how many children have become adults and been totally helpless in the world because their parents did everything for them?
Yes.
We're always bailing them
Helicopter
out.
pilot
Yeah.
parents.
Yes. Johnny, do you have any comments on this book or any of the plethora of other books? Well, there's not really a plethora, but there's several.
Yeah, sure do. I'll sort of build on what David said a little while ago about from the book, What Do You Do While You Count to 10? A Practical Guide to Anger Management. And one of the points that really struck my heart, is what you said in there, David. No one can make you angry. No one can make you mad. Anger is a choice. And I heard you say that with an example between you and your wife about continuing the chaos, and it sounded like you made a choice there. You chose not to engage her in anger.
Yes.
So could you sort of build on that and talk about some of the techniques which I personally found very useful in that book, about how does another person get to that place where I can make a choice and become aware of that?
Well, first off, like you said, it's awareness. Okay, I remember being 42 years old, and a counselor I used told me that anger is a choice. And I spent 42 years being angry, and I thought that was the biggest bunch of bull that I ever heard. But fortunately, I didn't discount it. And it was shortly thereafter, I was in a Circle K parking lot, went out to get my car, and my keys were in it, and the door was locked.
I've pulled that one.
Yep.
And me.
And I could feel that rage come inside of me, and I was going to beat that car up. I was going to show it, man. I was looking for something to beat that window up with. And I remembered what that counselor told me. And I remember staying in that hot parking lot thinking, do I want to get angry about this or not? And I said, I don't. And I didn't. I think that was my start into changing me. So it starts with awareness, knowing that you do have a choice.
And I would also say perhaps an innate curiosity and an intellectual honesty, too, because even though you thought that what that counselor was telling you was complete nonsense, you didn't discount it. You were wise enough or aware enough to
I think
realize.
the word is desperate enough. I was so much in pain, okay, about how my life was living, that I was desperate for something that made sense.
Sure. So okay, but yeah, that desperation has a real great way of making us honest with life.
That's a nice ring to it, doesn't it?
Yes. Johnny.
One of the techniques you describe in the book, David, is we all have a trigger, an event that causes us to have an emotion. And then based on that emotion then we have a reaction, either positive or negative. Lots of times, mainly negative. Could you talk about that cycle that you refer to as the TIA model?
Okay. That stands for think I over E. In this case, you have the event, something triggers it, and most of us have emotion. And if we don't manage the emotion, we have a reaction. So the model is to, instead of having the reaction, is to start identifying what we're feeling. And in the book, it has a mood chart which shows all the emotions. And being able to say the emotions out loud or to yourself, acknowledge them. Then we start the process of where is this emotion coming from? Well, our emotions come from how we think. If we think different, we feel different. So identifying our emotions, figure out what thoughts are creating this emotion. Once we identify that, and then we can think in our head, okay, we got these thoughts, how true are they? Some thoughts are true and some thoughts are false. So in our logical brain, our intellect, we can evaluate what our thoughts are and how true are they. Now we're in a position to act as opposed to be emotionally drunk and react. So that's the whole premise of that little model there.
Right. One of the other things that I saw in there was to gain more information before you decide or before you react. And then I think you had one of the techniques there was simply pause and then ask the other person a question. Try to investigate what is really happening. And I thought that was very beneficial.
Yeah,
Stop and think.
Well, it's sometimes somebody says something and you react to it. Okay. When they say something, especially outrageous, that you normally react to and you don't want to, a great question to ask is, tell me more. Tell me about it. Okay. Well, first off, this lets the person know that you're interested in hearing what they have to say.
Yes.
And second thing, it gives you a chance to calm down and not react. So tell me more is a great question.
Yes, it is. And yeah, that's all great. And it occurred to me, really, that the instant that you stop and ask a question, or, the instant even when you're just by yourself and you start to react to like leaving your keys in the car when it's running, the instant you engage basically a different part of your brain, it blocks out or short circuits the other part of your brain that's causing the automatic response. Is that fairly accurate? Or
Yeah, tell me more.
okay, well, I just remember reading a book by a guy who said that he had come up with methods for treating severe OCD, and one of the first things were when a person caught themselves going into that vicious cycle to just stop and say, "Wait, this is created by my mind."
Yes.
And
okay.
just the very act of thinking consciously stops the automatic process.
Well, what that is, I call it living life on purpose.
Okay, cool.
Okay.
Is that a title of another one of your books, just like the What to Say When You Count to 10?
I was looking for a title for the next book.
There you go. Give me a byline, will you?
Okay.
Let me remind everyone, we're talking to David W. Earle, a local professional licensed counselor who is also a prolific author. And at the moment, Johnny was asking questions about his book, What to Do While You Count to 10. And, okay, I'm sorry, David, I hope I didn't interrupt or cause you to lose your thought.
You did. I can't think of a byline right now, but living life on purpose
Okay.
is choosing, I choose to be angry. I choose to be a jerk. Okay, I'm owning that. If I'm owning it, then I have a choice. So you don't have a choice until you start to choose.
Until you acknowledge the problem, too, yeah. Oh.
I don't have a choice until I start to choose. I may choose to be a jerk about this. Okay, I'm choosing it. Who has the power, who has the choice of me being a jerk or not? I do.
Only you.
Only me.
Yep.
And it's such a powerful realization. I'm not a victim anymore.
Good point, except you could admit that you're the cause of your own problems, which is usually the case for all of us.
Yeah, amen.
Yes.
Tell me more.
Yeah, really. Well, I'm just thinking, we've discussed the meditations of Marcus Aurelius on this show, and he probably will again, but he lived around 2,000 years ago, and he made the same observations. He said, you can't be thwarted from without. You can only do it to yourself. And he also said that if put from you the thought that I have been wronged and the feeling of being wronged, that goes away.
Wow.
So,
See, that's how you think.
right. It's eternal wisdom. But Johnny, I'm sorry. By the way, you can call in. We have 5 minutes left. Speaking with David Earle, 343-9927. Johnny, a quick question, and then we want to get to the joke book that David authored with some co-writers.
One of the statements you made, David, that resonated with me is you state, my life will change when I change.
That's powerful, isn't it?
Yes, it is.
Yes. If somebody has that as a core value, that gives them permission to be introspective. And my theory about introspective is you do that through the door of your emotions. If you're not managing your emotions, if you're not acknowledging your emotions, if you're not allowing your emotions to work for you, then it's real hard to be introspective. So the first thing that I think in the change process towards maturity is to learn about your emotions and be willing and able to go to that mood chart and share them.
The mood chart being the continuum.
No, the mood chart is a list of feelings. I'm sorry, I didn't.
That's okay.
In I think every book I've written, that sometimes I have a drug addict I'm working with, and I get them to look at the mood chart, and I said, "Tell me what you're feeling," and they'll tell me the feelings and whatnot. And I said, "Now, stop and think. This is the exact same list of feelings that you used to drink and drug to hide from." And they stop and look at me. Yeah, it is.
Yeah. Well, if we may, with the forgiveness of the listeners, I'd like to bring some levity into the conversation.
Okay.
You're holding your most recent book, I believe, right?
Yes, came out April the 1st
Of this year, really?
of this year.
So I'm going to get a signed copy, but what's the title?
You might need a therapist if.
Oh. I'm afraid to look at some of those, but it's a joke book?
It's a joke book. It's not therapeutic for sure. It's for humor.
Is this critically acclaimed by any chance?
I critically acclaimed it. My mother loves it. My wife likes it, and the other authors like it.
Well, yeah, but I mean, did you get any? Most authors get some famous people to sign their book or to give a comment about the book and put that in a leaf.
Oh.
Hang on, we got a call coming in. You're going to miss your joke, I guess. Good evening. You're on the air with a pause for thought. Who am I speaking to?
Hi, my name is Garrett.
Jarrett or Garrett?
Yes, Garrett.
Yeah,
I wanted to speak to David Earle.
Yes, this is David.
that's my son.
Hey, I hear you have a few books out there. Can you tell us about all of them, and where can I find them?
Oh, you can buy them on Amazon.com. There's came out with 3 workbooks recently. The Wisdom of the 12 Steps, Step 1, Step 2, and Step 3. Those are the 3 workbooks. There's another one called
I'm sitting
Simple
there leaning on with my
Simple
elbow.
Communication for Complicated People.
Oh yeah, simple. That's a good one. I mean,
Yeah.
because the more complicated the people, the tougher it is sometimes to communicate.
And I had this wonderful guy that did the cover of that. Did you notice the cover? What does it look like, Wayne? You're not looking at it.
Oh, simple communications for.
Yeah.
I'm looking at it.
What's on the cover?
You don't recognize them.
Oh.
It's silhouettes of 2 adults, an adult woman and an adult male, with their backs to each other, and then 2 children, a silhouette with them.
Their inner child trying to connect.
Oh, okay, cool.
And I have a wonderful son that did that for me.
Oh, well, that's
And it was a
cool.
pleasure.
Okay, thanks a lot. Yeah. Oh,
He's
okay.
calling from Florida.
Okay. Oh, really? So
Yes.
he's live streaming on WHYR.org.
I guess I did.
Well, I don't think he's picking this up unless he's got one heck of a receiver. Well, that's cool. But yeah, that's true. Our inner inner children, so to speak. But I would think also.
Great show, guys.
Thanks a lot, Jack.
I'm to hang up and listen.
Okie doke. Quickly then,
You want to hear some?
We got time. Our atomic clock up here in the wall is not entirely accurate. So
Well, let me let you read some of the things that famous people written about the
yeah,
joke book.
I'd like to hear that.
Buying this book was the smartest thing I ever did. That was Albert Einstein.
Wow.
I had an axe to grind until I read this book. That was Lizzie Borden.
Well.
The jokes that come out like a machine gun. I love you guys. You killed me. That's Al Capone. Shuck, this book's okay by me. That's Wyatt Earp.
Well, I'd say you have quite a impressive lot of readers and people and followers.
I think that was the most fun part of the book is to write that.
Oh man, Johnny, one quick comment. We got to go.
Yeah, just question on some of your co-authors or some of your artists in there
Yes.
in that book.
Oh yeah. There's we had I don't remember who the illustrator Scott Shacklet, and the other authors are John Caffey and Cliff Carl.
Okay.
Cliff Carl is actually the editor that worked with me on Love Is Not Enough.
Okay. Well, we've got to go, David. I sure appreciate you coming on, and you're always welcome back, of course.
Well, thank you.
You've been listening to A Pause for Thought with Wayne Parker, Johnny Parker, and David Earle. And I thank you for listening, and we got to go. You have a good evening.